Good morning.
NATO leaders crossed by foot of the Bridge of Friendship spanning the Rhine, a river that once divided the arch-enemies Germany and France. French President Sarkozy told his guests what a mighty symbol of change it was.
L'entente, l'amitié entre l'Allemagne et la
So I
France.
thought I would get up and I would listen to radio overnight
Germany and
on
France is not
CBC
just an option, it's
and
an
be
obligation.
useful. So I'm
Our
doing
people suffered millions of war deaths. The leaders of our two peoples must keep this treasure of friendship. It is perhaps the most valuable and most necessary treasure in Europe.
Le plus nécessaire en Europe.
German Chancellor Merkel added that while previous generations had built the Franco-German friendship from the ruins of the Second World War, today's leaders face new challenges.
Afghanistan ist unsere Bewährung.
Afghanistan is our challenge. We want Afghanistan to be able to defend itself and make sure it is no longer a safe haven for terrorists. If we achieve this together, NATO will stand the test of the 21st century.
Die NATO eine Chance, sich auch im 21. Jahrhundert zu bewähren.
The summit also formally welcomed Albania and Croatia as new members, as
In
well
Canada, we
as
have
reinstating France into the
lot
alliance's
of world
command
news
structure after a 40-year
different
self-imposed absence. In the words of US President Barack
lot going on
Obama,
out there
this
in the
is
big
not
world.
the end of the road of NATO enlargement.
Welcome to NATO. We are very excited about your participation. The Atlantic Alliance
I think I have
is
too
60
many.
years old, and it's a measure of
No,
our
I
vitality
don't. It gives me
that
something
we
to
are
do
still
in the middle of the
welcoming new
night when
members.
I'm
And I look forward to the day when we can welcome Macedonia to the alliance. The door to membership will remain open for other countries that meet NATO standards and can make a meaningful contribution to Allied security.
But while the heads of 28 states and governments celebrated their alliance, violent protesters outside the security fence attacked the police and set several buildings on fire. On its 60th anniversary, NATO still, or more correctly again, has enemies within its own member countries. But there was also open conflict in the conference hall as well. Only in the summit's closing minutes was Secretary General Jaap de Hoop Scheffer able to announce the name of his successor.
Ladies and gentlemen,
What do you do when you
good
can't sleep
afternoon.
at night?
It is my great pleasure
I could sleep, except
to
for
announce a decision taken a few minutes ago by the heads of state and government in the North Atlantic Council
Abraham is still up.
to
He found
appoint
a new
Danish
name.
Prime Minister Anders Fogh Rasmussen as the next Secretary General of NATO. Yes, you may applaud.
Turkey had been the only NATO member to oppose Rasmussen openly because of his role in the conflict about cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad published in a Danish newspaper. However, Ankara apparently bowed to pressure from the rest of NATO, although the coerced decision could lead to new criticism from Turkish conservatives that the alliance is in effect nothing more than a Western club. Mr. Hasselbach, Deutsche Welle Radio, Strasbourg.
Staying in Strasbourg, police used tear gas to control tens of thousands of demonstrators taking part in violent anti-NATO demonstrations. Several buildings were set on fire and gutted, including 2 hotels. Deutsche Welle correspondent Letitia Jesus is in Strasbourg, and I asked her, what did she see?
The tension was already really high when people started together to go to the demonstration, and there were some clashes with the police, between the police and the demonstrators. The police fired tear gas at them, and of course then the protesters replied with rocks and stones, and there was a big clash between the demonstrators and people fired the buildings. So you have the former police hotels, the current information. Basically, this time Strasbourg was looking like a war zone.
Did it look at any one stage that the situation was out of control, or police were able to manage to keep the crowd together?
No, police was able to manage the situation, and now the place has been evacuated. They managed to take control, but also arrested some people. I would say now that the situation is under control, but there's still a big crowd of protesters here, so, it can still happen. I mean, they can still do something and decide to fight again.
What was the message of the protesters?
The protesters, they were for a large number of organizations. There were 600 organizations and more than 40 countries. But they had one message. They were against NATO. They want the abolition of this organization. They against war, they want peace for everyone, and the main message was 60 years of NATO, it's enough now.
That was Deutsche Welle correspondent Letizia Jesus in Strasbourg. An 89-year-old war crime suspect will not be deported from the US to Germany on Sunday as planned. John Demjanjuk is accused of being an accessory to thousands of murders in a Nazi concentration camp. But a US judge has ruled that he can stay in the country for now because of poor health. Demjanjuk's family argue that transporting him to Germany would be an act of torture. However, he still faces deportation unless US officials agree that he is indeed not fit to travel. Deutsche Welle Radio's Mark Hellam has more.
John Demjanjuk is accused of being an accessory to 29,000 murders. However, these alleged crimes were committed over 60 years ago. Back then, the Ukrainian-born Demjanjuk was known as Ivan, and he was allegedly a guard in the German Sobibor concentration camp, which is located in what is today Poland. Prosecutors in Munich issued an arrest warrant for Demjanjuk 3 weeks ago, and US authorities had agreed to extradite him. However, after a protest from his family stating that the 89-year-old man is too ill to travel to Germany, Demjanjuk has been told he can stay in the US for the time being. He suffers from pre-leukemia, kidney trouble and gout, and his family says it would amount to torture to fly him across the Atlantic. US officials will now investigate these claims. Kurt Schrimm is in charge of an organisation in Ludwigsburg, Germany, which seeks to bring Nazi war criminals to justice. He explains why his organisation turned their attention to John or Ivan Demjanjuk. At the beginning of last year, we read that he would be stripped of his US citizenship, Schrimm says. So, we took another look at the US and Israeli documents from past cases against Demjanjuk and sent the evidence we found to Munich's prosecutor's office. This led to the arrest warrant. One of the key pieces of evidence was also used at Demjanjuk's former war crimes trial in Jerusalem. It's his ID card, which describes him as a willing accomplice of the SS and states that he worked in various concentration camps, Treblinka, Majdanek, Flossenburg and Sobibor. But unlike his former trial, German prosecutors are concentrating on his time in the Sobibor camp. Kurt Schrimm explains why. We focused on Sobibor because Sobibor was exclusively an extermination camp, and so we think anyone working there must have known what was going on, and that shows their culpability in the crimes, he said. Demjanjuk was sentenced to death in a previous trial in Jerusalem, but the verdict was eventually overturned, as prosecutors could not prove his identity with 100% certainty. During that trial, Demjanjuk repeatedly insisted that he was not the Ivan the Terrible.